Hello everyone and welcome back to Crafts by the Bow. This is my August video for part of a global collaboration that I belong to. If you look at the links in the information box at the bottom, as well as links to other videos from members of this same group, you'll also see who actually belongs to the group and that we're all using the same set this month. And August's stamp set is Good Morning Magnolia, and it is a beautiful one from Stampin' Up. It has two sets of stamps. I actually have mine all in the one box, but there are two sets of stamps, and there are also some dies that go with it to cut out most of the flowers. It also has dies that will cut out leaves that are not included in the stamps, and like the little stamens and things. And this one, which makes the prettiest shape for cutting paper. And what you can do is line this up so that you have double the width of it. You don't have to have just the one width. So all in all, it's a really, really pretty set. And my video for this month is this one. I've used crumb cake and I've used early espresso, and I've hand painted the magnolia flower. And then on the inside, this is the smaller magnolia flower, and I've used the same one for the envelope. And I'm going to show you how I make it. So I've started off with crumb cake cardstock, and instead of cutting it my usual way, I've cut it so that when my card stands up, it will go this way. If you watch my videos often, you'll know that when I want a card like this, instead of folding an ordinary piece of card, which will then splay sort of easily like this, I always cut it this way so that it stands better. Now, I've got my scoring board, and I've scored down the card at 5.5, so it's cut at 4 1/4 by 11 and scored at 5.5. And here you can see where the score line is, and it has the little dip here, the valley fold. So that's the one I keep on the outside when I fold my card. If you fold it the other way, if you fold it this way and have the valley sort of on the inside, it means that the paper is stretching in two directions and you don't get such a crisp fold. So there's my base. Now, the other pieces I've cut are a piece of early espresso, and this one is cut at 3 7/8 by 5 1/8, and you'll need two of these. So you'll need two of those pieces. You'll need another piece of crumb cake, which is the same as your base colour, and that's cut at 3 3/4 by 5. And you will also have a little scrap from cutting this, and it will be a long strip like this. Keep this because you need it for your sentiment. And then last of all, I've got a piece of Very Vanilla, and it's cut the same as this piece of crumb cake, so 3 3/4 by 5. And this and one of the early espressos is going to go inside the card, and the crumb cake and the other early espresso is going to go on the outside of the card. And you'll see that it makes a very, very small border. So when we've got it on the card, it's just like that. I really only wanted an accent. I didn't want a wide border, so I've just got the tiniest little border around there. And we're going to need this piece of crumb cake first. So let's put the others out of the way. And then you're going to need the largest of the magnolia stamps, and it really is a whopper, but it's beautiful. So you'll need that one on one of your large blocks. If you don't have this very large block, what you can also do, and what I've done if I'm stamping when I'm away in the trailer or anything, is you can put it, let's just take it off to show you. You can put it on the stamp case and stamp just like that. So if you don't have this biggest block, that's the next best thing. But I'm going to show you it done on the block. Okay, so what I'm going to get a little piece of scrap paper. Excuse me while I just get this. This is just scrap, and I'm going to put it on top of here because I'll need to be doing some colouring and things, and I'll need the scrap. And then I'm just going to lay my crumb cakes just flat, get the early espresso ink, and ink up this big stamp. When you've got a big stamp, rather than taking your stamp and doing your inking up on the pad, what I feel is best to do, and what I see other people doing as well, is to put your stamp down and use your ink pad to go onto the stamp rather than the other way around. And that way you can also see if you've got all of it inked up, and it just makes it much easier. Okay, so I'm going to put the flower so that the stem here is right in the left-hand side corner, and that you get some of the leaves, but you won't get all of them. And just hold it for a second or two for the ink to transfer. There. Okay, so that's the only stamping for the front that we need. And I'm just going to wipe this off. I've actually not got my stamping chamois with me. They're in the washing machine right now because I like to put them in regularly just to get the ink out of them, but usually I use the chamois. There we go, I think that's all of the ink from there. So then I'm going to take this smaller Magnolia, and I'm going to take the piece of Very Vanilla, which is what we're going to put inside. And this time I'm going to use the early espresso again, but I'm going to take the stamp to the ink. Just make sure that it's all inked up. And I'm just going to stamp once in the right hand corner. And then I'm going to use the same stamp with no extra ink on the envelope. If you've waited a few seconds before you've inked the envelope up, all you need to do is just huff onto the stamp, and it will wet the ink again, and it will give you a nice image. It won't be as strong as the first image because it's actually second generation stamping then. It means we've used the ink already, and now we're going to use the ink for a second time. I think that at the moment that's all we need that stamp pad for. We will need it again when we do the sentiment. Okay, let's just clean that one and leave it. And we'll move the envelope out of the way. And we need this to dry before we start to colour. So while that's drying, I'm going to do the inside. And this is the piece that we just stamped on Very Vanilla. And I'm going to take one of our pieces of early espresso, and I'm just going to attach it. Now I have lots of fast fuse left, and I like to use that for attaching on my cards, but you can use the liquid glue Tombow, or you can use snail, or if you wanted you could even use tear and tape. But because I've got lots of the fast fuse left, I'm using it. Okay, now this is going on the inside of our card, and you can see I've got a little tiny mark here. Well, it won't matter because we're going to cover it up with this. And I'm going to put a couple of rows on, and then I'm just going to centre that. There we are. Okay, and so by now my main ink has dried on here, and we're ready to colour in. And you can see on this one that I used the Whisper White pigment ink. I've used Mossy Meadow. In the middle here I used Crushed Curry. And I also used a little bit of the So Saffron ink on the insides of the petals. This time, instead of using the So Saffron, I'm going to give it a try with the Petal Pink. I've not done one with the Petal Pink, but I just want to see how it looks. So let's start to colour. Now you can use blends if you want to, like the blends marker pens, but I'm actually going to use the ink pads. And I'm also going to use my aqua painter. Now this is a paintbrush that you fill up with water, and you can squeeze a little bit of the water out onto ink to do watercolouring with. But I don't really need the water at the moment. I'm only going to need the tip. If it gets too wet, all I'll do is just take a tissue and just wipe it so that there's not too much water. And I'm going to start with Whisper White. No, I think I won't start with Whisper White. I think I'll start with the Early Espresso. Whisper White takes a long time to dry, and if you touch another ink into it, it quickly transfers. So I'm going to use the Early Espresso instead. And all I'm going to do is touch my aqua painter just onto the ink pad, and you can see I've got a little bit of brown ink on there, and I'm just going to colour here. Now it's quite dark at the moment, and that's because I haven't got any water going in. If I was to put water in, let me just show you. If I put a little bit of water down through the nib and then put it in the ink, it's much lighter and much wetter. So I will just go over this just to show you the difference. See how it's much lighter and much wetter looking. But I don't want too much water, so I'm going to wipe that off. That's all I need the brown for. Now I'm going to do the leaves with the Mossy Meadow. And because we've stamped with a watercolour ink, it's a water-based ink, while we're colouring, it will run a little bit. If you want it so that it doesn't run, stamp with Memento Black, because that's more of an alcohol based, so it doesn't run so much. Okay, so the same as we did for the brown, I'm just going to get a little bit of the green. You can see how it's just a little bit wet, not too wet. And I'm just going to go over the leaves. You will need to keep adding more ink because it quickly soaks into the paper. And then you can see as well, just here, look, where the brown is starting to run. And I like that effect. It makes it look more like a hand watercoloured piece of art. Doesn't matter if you have darker and lighter pieces, because that's how it would look in nature. It wouldn't all be exactly the same green. And where some of that brown runs, it will just give a little bit more depth and dimension. You can see this one, this first leaf is still quite wet because it had more water on, and this leaf is nearly dry already. And turn it round a little bit, and let's do this leaf here. And you don't have to be a great artist to colour in. Stampin' Up have already done all the hard work. They've put all the shadows in their image, so it will look like different colours in there anyway. And it's really quite therapeutic doing this sort of colouring, because, as I say, you don't have to be a great artist, but when people look at it, they'll think you've watercoloured it and spent hours on it. And that's okay. Don't tell them the secret. Now, wasn't that quick and easy? So that's all of the green. I'm just going to dry my brush and make sure the green has gone. I don't want green for the petals. Let's put this green one away. I'm not colouring the little flower that goes on the inside or on the envelope though. Okay, now here's the Whisper White. And Whisper White is a very different kind of ink. This is a pigment ink, whereas our others here, look, you see, they're water-based. And pigment ink takes a long time to dry. What you can do, if it is taking a long time, is you can use your like your embossing gun, your heat gun for embossing, and just go over it, or you can leave it overnight to dry, or for a few hours to dry, but it really does take a long time. Now, if you don't want to paint straight from the ink pads themselves, let me just show you. You can take the ink refill bottles, put a little bit on a clear stamping block, and then paint from there. That works as well. But I like painting straight from the ink pad. And that way I don't have any mess, I don't have any waste, and you don't get sort of too much ink out. You only get exactly what you need. Now this will soak in, just because it's the nature of the ink. So what I do is tend to do one row or one layer on all of the petals. Doesn't matter if some are darker than others. And I try not to go over the brown lines too much, because I don't want it to bleed into this colouring. It was fine when it was going onto the leaves, but I really don't want sort of a brown smudgy bit on my magnolia petals. And you can probably see how it's drying. I think this first one that I painted, it's already sort of blended in and soaked in a little bit more there. But we will be putting some more layers on top. And I like where some of it is whiter than other parts, and it makes it look just more natural. I just keep turning around my card rather than trying to paint with my arm over the card. Because often what I'll do is I'll get my arm on the ink, and then I end up with a white arm or a coloured arm, and then I'll move my arm back and touch somewhere else on the card and get a big blob. So I find it best for me if I just turn the card around. But we all have our different ways of painting, so that's fine. As I said earlier, you could use your blends for this and paint that way, or you could use one of these blends that we have as well, a blender pen, where you just take a little bit of the ink and go like this with it. And it blends in just the same. It's just that I like the look of using the water pen. I think it looks more like you've used, oh, look, see what I mean about getting ink on places? I think it looks more like you've used a paintbrush. Now we're not going to worry about that little bit of ink, it won't make any difference. There we are, so that's the first layer of our petals. And I'm just going to squeeze a little bit of water through the pen to get rid of a little bit of that white. And I'm going to show you what I'll do with this white where I made a blob. I'm just going to take it off with a little bit of water. Put my Kleenex on it and look, it's gone. So don't worry if you do have a little bit of ink laying about. As long as you take it off and then dry it straight away, nobody will know it was even there. I will need to dry my pen again though, because I want to put a little bit more white on some of the places. You can see how it's dried, so that some places it's a little bit darker than others. So all I'm going to do now is put a little bit more of the white on, and I'm going to go over some parts where I just want it to look a little bit darker. I'm not putting any extra water on. Where these petals look like they're folded over, I'm just going to put a little bit extra in too. But remember, this will dry lighter again as well. you don't want it to look, you know, like a solid picture. You want it to look watercoloured. Okay, that's all I'm doing on there for now. So again, I'm just going to put a little bit of water through my brush and dry it on the Kleenex so that I don't have any paint left on the brush tip. And put the white away for now. And on my first one, this is where I got the So Saffron. Well, this time I'm going to try the Petal Pink. Just see a little bit of white paint there. Okay, now it's gone. So now I've got my Petal Pink and I just want to see what the colour's like. Oh, it's very, very pale. That's just what I'm thinking I'd like. I'm just going to load up the brush. Just put a little bit. And I'm only doing it at the bottom of the petal. Sort of where it's attached to the stamen and everything. So you've just got a little bit showing. And it won't show as like a strong solid pink. It will just show as a slightly different colour, a little bit warmer colour. You don't need to be a great artist. You just do a little bit, follow the lines that Stampin' Up! Have given you as well, where you see these kind of lines. I just go round that part a little bit more, because that's sort of the shading and the shadowing that they've already created for us. And then look at this piece, how will this go? Just put a little bit under there. And I think this is the outside of a petal, so I'm not going to put any there. Oh, I like the pink better than the So Saffron. I loved the So Saffron, but I do like this pink. I think that looks really pretty. I'm just doing a few little highlights right at the bottom of the petals. So we've almost got two colours of pink in there. Oh, that is very, very pretty. Yeah, I think I like the pink look better than the yellow. Very nice. Okay, so we're finished with the pink. I'm just going to clean my brush just the same, squeeze the bottle, put a little bit of water through, and you can see the ink nib is clean. I'm still going to do crushed curry as my yellow in the middle. So just the same, little bit of crushed curry on our brush. I've still got quite a lot of water, so I want to get rid of it a little bit. Okay, and then just in this very centre, just going to do this part yellow. I'm going to put a little bit extra yellow right in the middle at the bottom, so that it's a tiny bit deeper. There. And that's my painting done. And it will take a little while for that white to properly dry. So I'm just cleaned my brush. Can you see there's no ink left on the nib? And put the lid back on. And when I do finish with the brush, I always try to get the tip so that it's pointy again. I don't leave it sort of flat like this. I always just go over my Kleenex so that it's got that nice point ready for next time. We're finished with the yellow. And then we're just going to leave this piece to dry a little bit. And we'll work on the rest of the card. Now, you remember I said you would have a little strip of the crumb cake left. So your strip will be just this wide. What is that? It's an inch. So it'll be an inch wide. It will be a little bit longer than this. And what I've done is I've used the Hello stamp and I've stamped it just on the strip of card itself. And then I've cut it down so that the Hello is at the right hand side of my card. And I'm going to distress the edges, I started on this, you can see, but I'm going to distress the edges on here and the edges on this one. And for that, I'm going to use my bigger scissors. I don't like to use my Stampin' Up! Scissors because it can dull the blade if you do it too much. And I don't have the distressing tool that Stampin' Up used to sell. So I only have my scissors. All I'm going to do is I'm going to go from right to left across the card. And you see you end up with like little bits of snow almost. And you just gently move the scissors across the edge and it will give you that distressed look. So it sort of looks a little bit fluffy on the edges. I'm going to do the same with my Magnolia. I'm trying not to put my fingers on the Magnolia just in case it isn't quite dry. You do get quite a lot of fluffy bits from this process. And you decide how much distressing you want. And you can do just a little bit like I'm doing, or you can do much more, just using the same motion. I'll do more all the way along on this one so that you can see. You see how it just breaks up the fibres, cuts some of them off, and the more you do it, the deeper into the card it goes, and so the longer your fibres become. As I'm making this, I'm not sure what the other members of the global collaboration group are using. I know we've got some girls in the States and myself in Canada and some in the UK. I'm not sure where the other girls are all from yet, but this is the first time that I've joined in with it. I was on vacation last month when they were doing their videos. So it's always fun to see, though, what other people come up with the same stamp set and so many different ideas. There we go. That's as much distressing as I'm going to do. I like to distress it this way because you can see that you end up with sort of a texture on the very edges as well as little bits of the fluff or the paper fibres just sticking up. And I think this is a nice way to do it. But you do end up with a lot of bits of fluff. So let's just get rid of those. Now we don't need this piece anymore. So the next thing I'm going to do is to put some of our linen thread around it. You could use the linen thread that came in the pack of ribbon with the suite. It has this beautiful crumb cake type ribbon, which looks woven almost like hopsack, and then the green twine as well. And that really does look nice. I used the linen thread on here because it matched in with the crumb cake. But let's try it with the green instead on this one. I'll pop that ribbon back. And you're going to need it to go around your card 3 times. And to hold it in place, I'm just going to put a little bit of tape here and here. And I wouldn't recommend that you used your liquid glue for this because you end up getting your fingers in it a little bit. Well, I do. So I would either use tear and tape or snail or fast fuse if you still have some left. Okay, and then I'm going to leave a longish end there. And I'm going to go around the card 3 times. See actually how high I want it. That might be a little bit higher than I want. I'm going to start at the bottom instead. Okay, so let's see. So that would be 1. Oops. 2. And this will make the 3rd. Leave enough to tie a little bow. Let's pop that back. And you don't have to have the thread spread out too much, just however you want. And I'm going to get a little glue dot as well. I'm just going to fold it in half. And I'm going to put it under here. And it will just hold my linen thread in place, especially while I'm tying my knot. because otherwise you need another hand. I'm going to just do one overhand knot and then squash it into the glue dot. I'm going to move the rest of the glue dot down so that you can't see it. Okay, so now it's nice and firm. So it's not going to go anywhere. Let's take this little bit of thread off the end here. And then you just need to tie a bow. Just a simple bow. And then if you find that your edges here are twisting around, it's because you've got the thread itself twisted. So you can always just pull it out, take it back again, just slowly, and that way it will unravel itself. There we go. Try and get my loops both the same size. And then I'm just going to trim them off. Oops. Like that. Oh, I think that one's a bit bigger. Must have pulled that a little bit extra. Take a little bit off there. Get rid of those little pieces. And I'm pretty sure my Magnolia is dry enough to do my sticking with. So here's the little piece that I stamped on before. I'm just going to finish distressing the edges here. And there are some lovely sentiments in this set, and you don't have to choose hello. I very nearly put the thanks on, or the thinking of you, but I thought hello would do if it was going to be for a get well card, or just a simple hello, how are you doing, or even a birthday card. You could use those sentiments for anything. On the back of here, I'm just going to put a few dimensionals because it would be nice to have that little bit of depth on the card. If you're going to mail the card, sometimes if you use dimensionals and you use too many, it makes it too thick to go through the slot, so you end up having to pay extra postage. So just be careful that you don't need extra postage. Okay, so I'm just putting that on there. It's actually a little bit longer than I want, I think, so I'm just going to just gently take it off. And I'm going to take this one off as well. I'm going to chop a little bit off. Don't want it quite that long. So take a little bit off, distress that new edge. I'm going to pop another dimensional on where I took that one from. There. Don't ever be, worried about taking your card apart again and changing something. You have to be happy with it. And if you don't like where I've put the sentiment, it could go up at the top. You could have your twine at the top. You could put your sentiment at the bottom. You could put it on straight, unlike I just did. Mine's on another wobble. There we go. Now it's straight. Okay. And then I'm just going to put my fast fuse on the back. Just use whichever glue you're happy with. Okay, and then here we are back with our card. I'm going to close it up. Oh, I haven't put the early espresso piece on. Where did I put that? Where's it gone? It's hiding. Oh, there it is. I knew I'd had it. Oh, that was a lucky save. I very nearly stuck it on. Okay, so we'll line this up. And remember, it's only going to be a tiny, weeny little border on this one. There we go. And then let's put tape on the back of here. And then now we're going to line it up on the main card. And And then last of all, you could leave it like that. That's perfectly beautiful just however it is. But I'm going to put a few little embellishments on, and I'm going to put some of our little tiny pearls. You could put some of the metallic pearls on. That would look really nice. Let's do that. I'm going to colour them though. So I'm going to get, I don't have Mossy Meadow. I don't think, no, I don't have Mossy Meadow. So I'm going to go use the dark old olive. And I'm just going to colour 3 of them. 1, 2, 3. Let's put that away. So if you don't have the right colour pearls, you can colour them with your blends or your Stampin' Right markers. And the same with, really with all of the embellishments. These, I should have done these earlier though, because I like them to dry a little bit. But it'd be okay. And let's put one on there. Oh, the greens look nice, don't they? They really stand out. Put one up here. And let's see. Oh, I don't want to put one there because it's like 3 in a line. It's like tic-tac-toe. I could put it over here, but no, I'm going to put it over here. So, there we are. So, that's my card finished for the August collaboration and the video hop. So, which one do you like best? Do you like the one with the petal pink in the centre or the one with the So Saffron? Remember to visit the other videos from the other members of the team, and our videos go live on the first Wednesday of every month. So thank you very much indeed for joining me. Now let's put the little envelopes with them. Ooh, I think that was a bird just blew into the window there. So thank you for joining me, and I hope to see you all again for the next collaboration video, which will be the first Wednesday of September. Thank you very much, everybody. I'll see you all again soon. Bye-bye.